What's up? What is happening? Welcome to Level Up with Gal. I'm your host, Gal Perino, where I'm going to bring down in every episode, little by little, all the knowledge I have, all the trauma, the shit that I've been through in my life, and how I work through it to help you start to heal in your life and how to work through it in your freaking life and show up as your best freaking authentic self every single day to help you through all the shit and the bullshit and some more shit. So before we dive in, make sure you hit the subscribe button so you never miss any new episodes with your girl Gal. So today I want to talk about the healing journey. What does it mean to start your healing journey? How do you know if you are on that journey? And how do you start being on that journey if you want to start being on that journey? How, when, where, what to do, all of that stuff we're going to cover today. So for me personally, when I used to hear healing journey, I was like, what the hell does that mean, right? What am I healing? Healing what? Like, what do you mean? If I've already in my mind moved past something, then I healed. That was my like definition. That was my thinking of what it meant to me for a long time, to be honest. So everything changed when I started to realize, like, just because I say, hey, I'm like good with that, doesn't truly mean that I have healed, like on the inside, that I have truly actually gone back and revisit that trauma or traumas, that I've healed from that so I can actually move forward. And don't think of it as moving forward as in just because I said so, I moved forward. It doesn't work that way. And I'm saying this from experience because for so long in my life, I would say, yeah, that happened so long ago. I closed that chapter. So I'm good. I'm healed. Like, I don't need to go revisit that. But then when I talked about a certain topic, I would be angry. I would be triggered, it would trigger the fuck out of me. Right. And if you listen to me long enough, I said, if it's something that triggers you, it's a place and an area in your life that you have not healed from yet. It is an area in your life that you need to revisit and heal from the trauma and what has happened so you can truly move forward. And when you say it, you're not like reacting and pissed off and being triggered and your heart starts racing and you start to get warm and your emotions are high and you just want to scream kind of like thing. I'm literally describing how I have felt, right? And maybe you have felt something similar in one way or another. But listen, so I'm going to share a story to help you and you can reflect in your life. So for me personally, right? So, one of my biggest traumas in my life is when my parents got divorced when I was like 7 years old and when my dad was no longer in my life. And that was a huge trigger in my life for so long and trauma that affected me for most of my life, to be honest. And I remember being that little girl and I remember thinking in my mind, that I have healed from that because I moved on from that because I don't have control of that situation. So I'm telling myself I have healed from that. I move forward. So what's the big deal, right? So the big deal is saying that and actually working through trauma are two different things. Saying what you would like to, where you like to be, and actually being there is very, very different. So I used to think me saying that, I am healed now because I was not in control of that situation and versus, going back to actually, hey, how like to heal from that. How did that little girl feel and what happened in her life and has it affected her? And I say her, I mean me, right? So super, super freaking important. And the reason why I really want to like spend a little time talking about the differences too, and why it's actually so different is because, where I was at one time, I thought, my mental state that because I said so, that was true, right? And I want to talk about this because maybe you're in a similar situation right now, or it's happening right this moment as you're listening to this. And it's super important to know the differences and to know where you are, because the first step to healing is to have the awareness of where you are in your journey So you can acknowledge that, because if you keep thinking that you're healed and you're good and you're going to keep moving forward, and you really didn't heal, you're going to keep experiencing the same lessons again and again. And I'm telling you, I speak this all from experience, until you learn the lesson, until you have like that aha moment, like, holy shit, that's what I've been missing this whole time. So I wish you, I'm going to continue now, share, a huge aha moment for me to help you have your own aha moments. So, um, when I was younger, right, my parents got divorced and we moved away. I started a new school, had to like make new friends and all that stuff. And for so long, I would always think like, I'm good, I'm healed, move on, move forward. All because I thought, well, I didn't have control of that situation. And, we have to keep moving forward in life. And I'm good. I'm healed, move forward, whatever. Like, it's nothing I can do. That my dad was no longer in my life. He left and I didn't know where he was and I didn't understand what happened. But being that little girl, I remember thinking to myself, you know what? This is not going to break me. This is going to give me the strength to keep going forward. I'm going to be determined. I am going to figure things out, and no one is going to tell me otherwise. And I'm not going to take no. I'm going to keep trying. So it's always stuck in my head. And one of my favorite things to say now is, when there is a will, there's a way. And I truly believe in that. When you are determined enough, you will figure out a way. Even if you keep failing again and again, you will figure out a way, one way or another, as long as you don't quit and you don't give up. So maybe the little girl was like, you know what? I can't control why my parents got divorced. I don't know what happened. And on top of that, I can't control, why my dad left and he's no longer in my life. And I don't know why. And I may never know why, but I can't continue living my life and the rest of my whole life, wondering and wondering and wondering to the point where it's going to hold me back in my life. So I told myself, I'm good. I'm moving forward. And there's no big deal, right? Like, there's nothing to revisit. I'm good. I'm healed. I'm moving on. Okay. Telling myself this to believe this story in my head multiple times, again and again. So when we keep telling ourselves stories and stories and stories, and we start to tell ourselves that it's true and it's true and it's true, even if it's not true, we start to believe that it's freaking true. So I started to believe, like, yes, this is a story and it's true, because I keep telling myself that it's true and I'm healed and I'm good and it doesn't affect me. So what? Move on. But when people would talk to me about my dad, it would trigger the fuck out of me, to the point where I would like cry like crazy. You would have thought someone like beat my ass or something. And it would be like, to the point where I'm like, why are people even fucking asking me? It would just piss me off so much. And it would drive me nuts. Like, as if people are supposed to know, right? Like, people who just met me may ask like, oh, you never talk about, well, actually, not people who just met me, but people who've known me would say, like, you never talk about your dad. Like, just curious why. And it would trigger me. Like, why would you ask me? In my mind, that's what I thought. And I would just say, oh, he's not in my life. And then they're like, they'll feel bad for me. And then that'll make me angry, because I don't want you to feel bad for me. They feel bad for me. And that's like, well, how come? What happened? Like, what, like, do you know? And I didn't know the answer of why he wasn't in my life. Okay. So that pissed me off too. Like, why the fuck are you asking me so many fucking questions? That was what I was thinking. Like, I'm good. Why do you care? And I got defensive. So if you experience something similar, when someone asks you something, you get defensive and you get angry and you're reactive, it's most likely a spot in your life that you have not healed from. That's why you're reacting that way. Okay. So that happened for a while. Or like, I just remember being young and, new people I would meet, and like, oh, we always see your, like we see your mom, or we hear you talk about your mom, but like, what about your dad? Or like, how come he's not in your life? And because, and thank goodness for my stepdad. He's amazing stepdad. I was talking about my stepdad a lot. And he would say, well, you always talk about your stepdad. How come you never talk about your dad? And it used to bother me so much, to the point where like I would be in tears, I would be angry. It was like one way or the other, where I'd be like super sad and crying, or super freaking pissed off and like super reactive. So, it was my way of dealing with that trauma, and thinking I healed, but I really didn't heal from the situation, clearly, because it triggered me. a lot. And in so many situations, I used to like question and wonder, like, why does it make me so mad? How do I work through this? And I was just like, you already have, gal. You're a tough cookie. Like, don't cry, because then you're like you're a weak sauce. You have to be tough. So don't cry. And don't talk about it, because you healed and move forward. This is something I always told myself to make me feel, or for me to think that I am healed from this trauma in my life. And so fast forward, and it caused like a pattern in my life. Okay. From not going back and, well, one, not realizing I didn't realize that I really didn't heal from that. And two, um, it created a pattern in my life that I didn't notice for a long, long time. So the pattern was, okay, I was 7 years old when that happened, with that trauma. And I was 7 years old. I made that commitment to 7-year-old gal that you're determined, you can figure it out, and nothing and no one's going to stop you. And you're healed. You're good. You're going to move forward. Like, your dad not being in your life is not going to be the end all be all. And that's literally what I told myself. And so I like literally am losing my train of thought. I'm like, where am I going with this? So, anyways, I just want to share, if you experience anything like that similar, it doesn't have to be in a divorce or a parent trauma, or maybe you experience something similar and it still triggers you in one way or another. It's a part of you. Like, I would recommend pausing this and writing down right now what came to the surface, and what area do you need more healing from that? Like, what area do you need some time to go back to that little girl, that boy, and what happened, and what caused you to feel that way? And did you ever acknowledge what happened? So you go back and heal from that. And it's super freaking important, because like I was saying, the patterns are going to keep happening and happening. So for me personally, right? So the number 7, I never actually noticed this until one of my coaches pointed it out to me, right? So she said to me, gal, the number 7 is very significant in your life. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Because I was telling her, about when I was 7 years old, my parents got divorced, my dad wasn't in my life anymore. And that, every 7 years I noticed this pattern, but I didn't make the connection until she said it. I noticed a pattern that every 7 years I would have like the itch to do something different, right? And what I mean by that is like, let me go to a different job, or let me switch something up, right? Let me just chop my hair off, or let me dramatically change my hair color, or let me do something, right? I needed, while we knowing I needed something to happen, because that was like the pattern I was used to, right? Every 7 years something happens, or I created something to happen because I was so used to that trauma happening, something happening. And and it is truly one of the biggest ones I remember is, I remember like 7 years at one job, and I was like, I'm done. Like, I'm ready to go somewhere else. Like, I just made a decision, like, you know what? I'm ready to move on. I'm gonna go somewhere. I'm gonna go work somewhere else now. The next job, okay, I'm done. I'm ready. I'm gonna go somewhere else now. Right. And obviously there's factors involved too of why I chose to leave, some of those jobs. But the bigger pattern and picture is that number 7. 7 years old when that happened. I started my personal development journey 7 years ago, from today, actually. Well, not literally today, but you know what I mean. And, I started when my coach said to me that number 7 is significant in your life, gal. Let's start to look at the patterns and what keeps happening in your life every 7 years. So for a while, I was thinking like, nothing's happened, right? Until I started talking it through with my coach. And that's when I really realized that, that 7-year-old girl, all that trauma that's happened to me, and all the walls I put up to protect myself needed to be healed. I needed to go back to that 7-year-old girl and acknowledge what actually happened to me and in my life, and what happened for me in those moments when I was that 7-year-old girl, instead of pushing it aside and moving and saying, you're moving forward, you're good, right? Saying that for most of my life. And starting to look back and notice some of my moments of me being super reactive and lashing out at people, who just asked me a simple question, like, how come you never talk about your dad? Or ask me like, hey, you talk about your stepdad all the time. What about your real dad? Is he alive? And even that question, is he alive? Just like blew the gasket in my mind because of all that trauma that has not been healed. Okay. So I had to go back. I had to go back and work through like and acknowledge what happened to me, work through what happened to me, how it made me feel, and how that trauma in that moment, how it shaped the rest of my life. Okay. And it's super important to go back and acknowledge, like, I see you, I feel that. And think of it, don't think of it as like you're actually gonna like teleport back to that would be really, really freaking badass if that was possible. But what I mean is like, you're not literally going to go back to being, I didn't literally go back to being that 7-year-old girl. What I did was I took the time to go back to acknowledge how I felt when I was that 7-year-old girl, to acknowledge the hurt feelings I had and the defense walls that I put up and how I dealt with it back then so I can manage going forward in my life. And how that's when I was 7 years old, how I said, you know what? I'm not going to cry. I'm going to be a tough cookie and no one's going to tell me different. I'm fucking determined and I'm going to figure things out one way or another. And no one's going to tell me any different. I remember being in the car when I was that little girl and it was, it was supposed to be the weekend that my dad was supposed to pick us up and, he didn't show. So my mom drove us to where he used to live. And I don't know, something in my gut and my feel and like in my stomach, I just knew he was gone. We pull up and it was like all this stuff on the curb. And in one breath, you might think like, oh, maybe he got evicted, right? But I just knew that was not the case. And I remember my mom telling my brother, like, you go check to see if there's anyone there, is anything in his place. And I just knew, like, watching my brother, I remember this like it was yesterday, watching my brother get out of the car and to go look in the window. And I just knew who was going to come back and say, oh, his stuff is gone. He's gone. And part of me was hoping that it wasn't going to be like that. Part of me was hoping that, oh, he just moved and forgot to tell us. But I knew in my gut, in my heart, that the truth was he was gone. So I knew he was not there, and my brother came back and that's pretty much exactly, what he said. So, you have to move forward in life, right? That's really, literally how I thought too. My mom's always taught us like, to be independent, take care of yourself. And if anything ever happened to her, we had to be able to take care of ourselves and be independent. So I always remember that. And I've been very independent for as long as I remember, to be honest, by choice. I moved out when I was 19 years old and started like doing my own thing. And, my mom's always been there and was like, if you want to come back, you can, whatever. But I mean, I was never actually that far away from her. I was only like, when I moved away, I was like 3 miles away. So, like, but it was still nice to do my own thing. So, I look back a lot and like, if that trauma didn't happen to me, I wouldn't be who I am today. Right? I wouldn't be independent like I am. I wouldn't have been able to move out when I was 19. And I wouldn't be a coach today. Like that was one of the huge things that happened in my life and why I became a coach today, to help other people. No, you're not alone. And you can make it through the things that's happened to you. And it's okay. It could be scary to go back to revisit these moments, to process them, to heal from them. But you don't have to do it alone. And it's okay to cry. It's okay to process what happened to you so you can go forward. So you no longer are reactive and super pissed off. And, when you talk about it, and it's okay to talk about, it's taken me a long time to get to this place because normally before when I used to talk about it, I would be in tears and it's been a point where, I've told my friends about it and I can't even tell the story because I'm crying so much as if somebody tried to kill me or something, or somebody just died. So if I can do it, so can you. If I can share my story and heal from what's happened to me, so can you. And that's just one major thing in my life, but been the biggest thing in my life that has shaped me to be who I am today. And I look back and I'm like, I'm so grateful that, my parents got a divorce. I'm so grateful that my dad wasn't in my life because it changed me. It changed me so much. When my dad was around, I do remember him loving me a lot and spoiling me. I do remember that. And who knows, maybe that could be a spoiled brat today. I definitely would not be who I am today, where I'm just super grateful for the people in my life, super grateful for the new people I get to meet. And I'm super grateful for the trauma that's happened in my life. And I never thought for a long time that I could ever say that and be okay sharing and expressing that. So if I can do it, so can you. I'm not going to lie and tell you that it's super easy. It does take work. It's taken me years to get to where I am, and I'm still a work in progress. None of us are perfect. I believe we're all perfectly imperfect. So your journey and your story, know that the healing process and journey takes time, and each step of the way is going to help you move forward to the next level. Okay. And it's really important to go back to those moments that really, really was traumatic in your life, that really shaped you to who you are today, to heal from those moments. And you don't have to grow up in a divorced family to have trauma. You could have grown up in a, well, I like to call it like a perfect picket fence family, with a mom and dad. And I call it that, which doesn't mean that it actually is perfect. I've always envisioned it that way because I didn't have that. And I know for a fact, and I have friends and, I know people who grew up in a home with the mom and dad, and it was not perfect. I just used to think that because I didn't have my dad in my life. But so don't discredit yourself if you're listening to this and you're like, well, I grew up with a mom and dad, so I must not have any problems. No, that's not true. You probably still have some trauma and some problems, and maybe your parents didn't even intentionally wanted to cause you any trauma, but it still happened. They probably did the best they could, right? Or whatever state of mind they were in at that time, whatever. Or maybe certain things they said to you just stuck with you. And, and it's affecting your life today. Maybe it could be so many things in your life. So take the time to reflect and really see what areas in your life do you still need some healing. And one of the biggest things that helped me in my healing journey is having coaches. That was a blind spot for me. If my coach didn't call it out and say, hey, number 7 is significant for you, gal, I never would have noticed that. And because it's like, and one of my other mentors says, like, when you're in the jar, it's hard to read the label. And it's so true, because when you're in the situation, it's hard to see a different perspective sometimes. And it's hard to see things from a different view because you're in it, right? That's why it's so much easier to help somebody else through something they're going through, because you're not personally in it. When you're in it, it's so much harder. So I would really, really recommend you, hire a coach to help you see things in different ways, to help call out your blind spots. That's one of my favorite things to do now with my clients, to help them see their blind spots, the spots they don't see, because I know exactly what that's like. I didn't see that blind spot. And as soon as she was talking to me about it, boom, clicked, started to see the patterns. And I was like, oh my gosh, all these years, like if I had her sooner, right, I would have clicked. But I also believe everything happens for a reason. So it happened exactly the way it was supposed to. And who knows, maybe if I met my coach sooner, that it wouldn't have even come up, because some of the other stuff hasn't happened before. Every 7 years, this happened and that happened. Okay. So the biggest thing I want to share with you and to take away from this episode is to know that you're always on a healing journey. Know that you're not alone, and reflect back in your life and any areas in your life that need some healing, any trauma, whether it be for your parents or somebody you met, or old boss, or old friend, old relationship, where they made you feel a certain way that affected your outlook on things going forward. Maybe you had a significant other that cheated on you, and that comes up for me because that's something I can relate to. So I used to think like, well, everyone's going to cheat on me, right? And I didn't actually let myself heal from some of those moments of like what actually happened, right? And I had to go back to like, hey, let me revisit those relationships and look back, like what happened in those relationships. What was my fault? What was his fault? And how can I do better? And how about I not assume that the next person it's going to be exactly like that, right? Because if I kept thinking that when I met my husband, I would have assumed that. And when you manifest and you keep thinking something's going to happen, it's going to happen. And maybe we want to be together still today. So it's super important to go back and revisit these moments and start to heal. And if you're thinking right now, like, how the hell do I do this, gal? Like, okay, I have the moments down. All right, wrote them all down on a list. What do I do now? Right. And I'm going to give you a couple tips. So first thing to do is, okay, which one out of that list, because you need to heal from all of them, but this is what I recommend. Which one from the list is the biggest one or biggest two that really triggers you, that like, it's like, oh my gosh, because like for me, right, my parents get over, that was a huge thing, and my dad like leaving. So what on your list is like a huge number two, like top two, where you really need to start working on? Because I bet those top two has really affected a lot of stuff in your life and you may not even notice. So it's super important to dig deep to those. All the other ones are important too, but go to the ones that are major ones, as in that makes you super trigger, makes you super reactive. So go to those. And then the next thing to do is start to journal. Like, how did you feel when that situation happened? How old were you? How has it affected your life since then? Okay. And what are the actions you have taken that could tie to that trauma or those traumas that's happened in your life? Start to look at it from like a bird eye view of your life and start to look at it. And if it's hard for you to figure out, that's okay. Just write what comes to mind. The other thing I will recommend that will help a lot is to find a mentor, a coach that can help you work through this and process through it, to start to see, hey, why is my life the way it is? Hey, do I have the habits that I do? Why is it that maybe I can never accomplish anything that I set my mind to? Because did you really set your mind to it though? Because if you did, you would accomplish it. Or why do I always struggle hitting a goal? I set the goal, but I'm good for 2 days, and then I can't do it. Right? A lack of accountability, a lack of self-worth, confidence, and your coach can help you work through that. If you resonate with my story and you have any questions or you want any help, reach out to me. On Instagram, my username is gal_Perino, or send me an email at lifecoach@galperino.com. And if you're interested in working one-on-one with me, reach out to me. Let's see if we're a good fit. And if I'm not the right fit for you, that's okay too. Find somebody, my other recommendation, find a coach that you really resonate with and that you vibe with, because that's how it's going to work, like to the best of your interest. Like, that makes sense. I had to think about that, because if you have a coach that you don't vibe with, and then it's not like this dance where you're going back and forth and you don't trust them, it's going to be very hard for you to be vulnerable and to open up and to allow them to help you. Okay. And I'm speaking this from experience. So, my one coach in particular, she is just like, I really trusted her, and she really created that space for me to have these huge aha moments. So that's what's super important, is not just hiring anybody, is to hire the right person to really help you. Okay. So I hope you found that helpful, to start reflecting your life and see, are you on your healing journey? If you're listening to this, you're like, I am on my healing journey, gal. Like, you by myself, and that's okay too if you are. But what I would ask you is, what spots or what areas have you got to where you're stuck? Right. And I get it. I used to be someone too who said, like, I'm gonna do it all by myself. I got this. I believed in that so wholeheartedly for a long time, because that little girl, that moment said, I'm super determined. I'm gonna figure out my own. And I really meant that for a long, long time. I always said that until I got into this world, and I'm like, oh my gosh, so much. I know so much more now, and so much has changed for my coaches, giving me different perspective. So much I wouldn't have known, because I'm going to be honest with you. You only know what you know, and you don't know what you don't know. That is the truth. And there is power in knowledge. There's power in asking for help. Get that. Um, my watch is picking up my recording, but there's power in asking for help, and there is power in knowing you need the help, right? And getting the help that you need. So I hope you found this really, really freaking helpful. I love every single one of you. Thanks for tuning in. Remember, we're all on a healing journey, and don't be afraid to dive deep into each trauma, each thing that you're healing from in your life, because it's an experience. We're all here having this wonderful human experience. And each step, each piece of trauma, each piece that you heal from is going to help you. And then you level up in your life, the next step of your life, and it's meant to happen for you. No one's life is perfect. So don't ever think that you're the only one who needs some healing. We all do. Every single one of us. And things happen in our lives all the time, trauma that happens that we end up needing to heal from too. It just doesn't mean it's just deep rooted past trauma. It could be new stuff that's happened that starts to affect our lives now. Okay, so start to reflect. And if you need anything, you know how to reach me. And I'm here to help you in any way that I possibly can. Please leave a review if you found this episode helpful. I love every single one of you so much. Remember to shine bright, do you, and be you. Don't let anyone dim your freaking light. And the very last thing I would share is to remember to spread love and kindness to anyone that you meet or you encounter, because you may be the one person that sheds light on their life. Help them keep going one more day, one more hour. So please be kind to other people. Share this podcast episode if you found it helpful. Let's impact more lives together. I love every single one of you, and I will catch you all in the next episode.